Yup. Welcome everyone to the We Are Gamers series. My name is your host, Champ Tone, aka Psychosis, a gamer with a passion for Jesus and gaming. And it is a true pleasure once again to grace your space this day. Today, I'm sorry, word, Jesus loves you. Today we have the honor and privilege of a great panel discussion on a topic that every gamer has faced literally right now. It is a topic that I believe especially with the onset of these new triple and now quadruple A titles, which have been falling flat on their faces, the price of gaming. It has gotten a little too crazy. And for today's panel, let me introduce our panelists. We have today Bumble Bucket, we have
Yo.
Gary, Peons Go Zug Zug,
Yo.
the real Death by Cows,
What's up? What's up?
Avant Garde,
Where they at?
the Tortellini Storm,
What's up?
and last but definitely not least, the infamous Gary. Welcome, brother. I think he's muted. He looks like he is, but he is here.
Oh, hello. Sorry.
Hello. There we go. I didn't miss anyone, right? I got everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, we've all felt it, right? It's things are more expensive. I mean, what's the first game you think about when you think about the price of gaming increasing? Shoot it out there, anybody.
Pokemon.
Pokemon. That was literally the last thing I was expecting. But
A
why
half-baked game with overpriced DLC.
You mean the one for the Switch?
Yep.
Wow, really? You think so?
Personally, yes, because the game is already $60, and that game, it's literally happened live. I've seen it happen to Tortellini, actually, where the game just deletes your save. It gets corrupted, and there's so many bugs. Mind you, $60 game, and then they have the audacity to give 2 short little stories afterwards for an extra $40.
40.
So that's
those DLCs are $40.
Yes, so that's basically an $100 game that was barely finished and barely functions sometimes.
Good lord, give me some other
And then-
games. Just throw it out there.
Well,
Gra-
the game itself is also very overpriced too, because you're looking at the same generic formula that's been used since, like, Gen 1. X Kid gets Pokemon, X Kid discovers World, X Kid becomes champion, and one of their greatest flavors, as most Pokemon fans can attest to, is like Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Pokemon Crystal, where you could do a whole list of stuff, right? But they haven't done anything like that since then. It's all just been the same formula over and over again without any real deep storyline, and it's kind of one reason why Palworld has done so well.
Also, to be fair, Pokemon Gold, Silver, Crystal were supposed to be the last games in the series. There weren't supposed to be any more after that.
Yes. Which is...
So, with that
That I didn't
knowledge
know.
being said, it's like, okay, you kind of give them a pass on everything they've done so far with Pokemon, because I mean, when you take that into account, that's the only reason why you're allowed to go back into Johto. So, or is it Kodo? Whichever one it is.
Johto.
That's why
Johto
Kyle
and
knows
Kanto.
Pokemon.
Unlike Peons, he don't play Pokemon.
I'm surprised you guys are even thinking games are expensive, because when I bought them
What?
back in the day for a Game Boy, it was $50.
No,
and it's still $50. So I don't understand
that's
what's
true.
going on, to be honest.
There were Super Nintendo games that cost $70.
$70
back
for the Super FX
90s. Like,
chip.
yeah,
The
it's
Super
not
FX
it's not
chip.
unreal.
So, all right, this is good. I like this. So let's define what we're talking about then. When we talk about the price of gaming, let's do that first. So
We're talking about $65 horse cosmetics.
So
what we're talking about.
Oh, well,
So-
that's
so money-
microtransactions. That's different. Well,
That's
I
good.
guess
That's
it's
good.
relevant.
I mean, so we have money. What else are we talking about when we're talking about price? Like, what are we looking at in terms of price? So we have money, right? Money's the number one thing. But what else? What else? What other prices are being paid here with these games?
Everyone's time. All the time
yeah.
suck that they sink into all these games,
Mhm,
whether they're
mhm,
shitty or
mhm.
not.
Okay, there's one. So I was making a list right this week, and I got a third one. I don't know if everyone will agree with this.
Your
But what?
sanity?
Yes, that's literally that is
Oh, okay.
literally what I wrote.
That's funny.
Sanity, because I mean, come on, how many games do we play? Because you want to play a game, right? So what is a game? It's a hobby. It's something you do. You know what I mean? It's what you spend
Meant to
your
be fun.
time and money on,
Right.
right? So you don't want it to wreck. You know what I mean? And this. So okay, so now we go to the next part because people started talking about, oh, games really aren't that expensive, and you know what? It's kind of it's true and it isn't, because I mean, like Peon's point, he was saying, you bought a Game Boy cartridge and it was $50 for that 8-bit, even Nintendo, Super Nintendo. $50 was the norm, right? I think we all can agree on that. Yes? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then Kyle started talking about other things now. Like go more into that. I like where you were going because you kind of knew where I was stepping into.
Oh, I can go into that too.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, even if you even if you discount or disregard the whole idea of games being not expensive in the first place, sure, fine, $5, $10, $20, $60, $100, however much the game is, however much the collector's edition is. Almost every game
$100.
now has some form of microtransaction, cosmetic,
Right.
Shenanigans going on. So it's like I think in the last podcast or in the one that I did with you, I had brought up the fact of how Ubisoft decides that they're going to release like the Assassin's Creed Valhalla game,
Right.
like their collector's edition or their complete edition is $130, and this is excluding all of the game-breaking
crazy.
things that you can buy inside of the game, right?
Right.
And in total, that's around $800. And it's not just like cosmetics, like there's horses and things of this nature and stuff like that. Cool,
Horses.
but yeah,
Digital
and
horses have become digital horses. It's crazy. Every game
Yep.
has them, and they're like more than the full game.
I thought Black Desert was bad with that.
It's and in that game, it's alone. If you buy that game, you're looking at like $1,000 in total for all the cosmetics, all the
$1,000.
a little thing, and that's
insane.
that's including the game. Including if you want to go balls to the wall and buy the Super Omega edition that comes with like a really fancy spoon or whatever it is that they give you with those things anymore.
Fancy spoon to do the craft.
I mean, Gary, you're not far off, because I mean, think about back in the day how we had Call of Duty come out with the night vision goggles, or the one that came with the RC car.
Well, yeah, but
it
those
came
things
with a
were
physical.
Like,
it was a
like
physical
map
thing.
packs.
Well,
yeah,
no,
like some of those things were like map packs and stuff like that. I mean, even like the old
come with a
Dead Space
drone
back in the day.
Didn't it come with a drone one
came
time?
with a drone.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a physical drone, not an in-game drone. You know what I mean? That is a physical item that you can play with, which I thought was amazing.
Well, most of the time now they all come with, they're just like, get our e-art book. And I'm like, well, that's really cool. I could probably just look that up online. I'm not sure why I'm paying an extra $20 for it.
To be
But
fair,
okay, thanks.
some art books are worth collecting. Like I have some of the WoW collector's editions, like the old ones. I have,
but that's physical.
yeah, I have the physical.
Oh yeah, physical ones. That's a different story.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Most
those
of the time
are
they're not physical. They're all like e-art, like
it's like a
electronic
PDF
art.
file.
Yeah, it's a PDF file.
That I've never understood. That's weird. Like buying the soundtrack of a game. Like now you could just go on YouTube and just get the soundtrack. And
Well, that's also piracy, but that's a different topic, I guess.
No, YouTube isn't piracy. And I mean,
if you're downloading the soundtrack off of YouTube,
well, you can, but if someone's issued it as free for like a free use thing and given disclaimers and stuff like that, to them it's not
Right.
I think to them it's not considered piracy, but I guess I'm not sure if downloading. I remember there was an old thing that you could do, like YouTube. There was a YouTube MP3 converter, like way back in the day. That you
YouTube
could
to
Yes.
MP3 and
Yes.
MP4 all
Yeah,
the time.
and they shut those down. I used to use them all the time too.
hmm
And they shut them down. I mean, anyone else? Come on, where's Avante?
I mean,
Where's-
for me,
ahead.
I mean, it's just like I don't see any issue. I think this is what the gaming industry has done. They kept the price of the game the same, but to make profit and do stuff now, they give you the microtransaction ability so that people that really want to get into the game and spend whatever amount, they're allowed to do that and they can do it. I think with some games it kind of sucks because they do more pay for power, which isn't as fun to other people,
Mm.
but it's still a transaction. And I think, like, again, what was it, Diablo, whatever, did
Immortal.
that and showed how
Immortal. Diablo
some
Immortal.
people enjoy that and they
Diablo
will
Immortal.
pay Google's money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to just keep paying for power, and they'll
That's
do
it.
that. I mean, some people, that's their life, and other people like myself, like, I don't mind buying a cosmetic here and there
Mm.
and enjoying something like that. Especially if you're
Mhm.
playing the same game for years and it's not like something that you're just like, oh, I just want the cool gold version of this, and it really doesn't do anything for me except for give me a cool border. Like, I don't care about that. Like, that doesn't. I just rather get the game for $50 and play it, and then
Mhm,
be
mhm.
done with it after 6 months or whatever, or playing it a few times. But I think with games that are ongoing, like WoW and MMOs are really big about it, and like other games like League, I think it's fine to have microtransactions because it gives you the ability to decide if you want to set a allowance yourself and pay for those type of transactions and play for the experience of the game and enhancing it in what you like to see of it. But it doesn't take away from the gameplay because for the most part, it's not giving you power or anything. It's just giving you a cosmetic upgrade to what you like. So in my state, I think it's like I think it's a good way for the company to still provide a game and make a good amount of money, but also not raise the price to where like they don't want to make it to where the initial ground price to pay for the game is going to be $100, $200, and then microtransactions. It kind of kept it the same and then allowed the player base to do it, and that model has allowed them to gain profits because people are more likely to purchase into that type of system
Mm.
and do it.
Well, I got to raise you the argument. There's a difference in having cosmetics and then having pay for power, or pay for the sake of paying. Like in that game that I'm talking about, like the Assassin's Creed Valhalla,
Yeah,
there is
okay.
no multiplayer. You're literally just
Mm.
paying for power. But when you're paying for power at an exorbitant rate of $800 or $1,000 in total for everything, if you so wish it,
It's a little
that's a
excessive.
lot. It's milking the player base. Unlike League, where I don't know, I guess Rocket Hand Blitzcrank might be a little paying for power. That hand is so fast, I swear to God. But they're in comparison to games way back in the day, you paid $50 or $60 for a full game. Look at look at games like Skyrim. Even back in the day, you paid for a little bit of story DLCs and stuff like that, right? Okay, cool, that's fine. But now you're paying for a base game of $60-$70, but then for all this additional content, you want another $60 for content that should already be in the game. I mean, look at Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. Fantastic, phenomenal game. No DLCs required. Amazing single player experience. Huge following fan base even to this day. All of those games, and there was nothing. People even went out of their way to actually reinstall some of the old cut content. I mean, for me, it depends. Like,
Yeah,
for
that's
the
a good.
pay for cosmetics or pay for power, but when
Yeah,
it just feels like there has to be a line. Like, what is too much?
yeah. So that's
Especially
actually,
for people of lower income.
and that's so what is considered too much, and why does it seem? Because I don't know. For me, it seems more prevalent, but I have a list of why. I mean, I get what Peons is saying too. The price of gaming. You bought the base game. The base game was $50, but the base game isn't really $50 anymore. It's gone up. just across the board. Look, so let's think of some current AAA and I say quadruple A because who was it? You know why
I
I'm
think it
saying it.
was Sony.
What was it? So whoever made that new pirate game that is like a piece of garbage. Apparently, I haven't
it was
played it.
Ubisoft.
That was
Skull and
Ubisoft.
Bones.
There you go.
That was Ubisoft. That game's been in
Yeah,
development
yeah.
since Assassin's Creed 4, and
Yeah.
it came out and it's garbage.
Yeah, it's
Supposedly, I haven't
awful.
played it myself, so.
And they're talking about quadruple A. Look at Starfield. Starfield.
Oh, Starfield.
And then and so why are these? What's the justification? Honestly, let's think about it in a contextual objective as much as we can. Why would a game be more? Because I mean, there are things like inflation. There's talk, guys, talk. What?
I think the companies got bigger, and
Okay.
because they got bigger, when they get bigger that way, their appetites get bigger. So
Mm,
when they become a non-independent, indie, like these little indie games that we see on Steam, we still have respect for. Like, we give it a try. They're not trying to charge. These no names aren't really trying to charge $70 for a game. They want to charge you $5 and see how it does, or
yeah.
promote some kind of beta, or even an alpha, and see how much attention they can grab, how much success they can get from it. But for the prior, like the big daddies, they just got so big that when it's that much of a corporation behind it, it becomes a business, unless it becomes a business to profit instead of like a passion project. And so they have to pay salaries. They have to grow because especially when it gets swallowed by other companies that are public, they have a bottom line, they have shareholders. So it becomes a cash grab and becomes what is the formula to have them continually pay us, because they need recurring revenue somehow, and they need a balance of recurring revenue in some way, which could be cosmetics and all that kind of other microtransactions. It could be additional games, but additional games are harder because they take more time, especially if it's intellectual property that's new and different, and they're not trying to bite off at anybody. Oh world. But like outside of them trying to, outside of that scenario, if they're trying to make something new and different, like that's hard to do. So they need something in between to make money off of. And I think that's why they can come out with a base game that's $50, and then they want you to expand it, and here's the expansion, and then here's the DLC, and it's the same thing, and here's the horses, and here's the swords that are gold and black, and here's a dog that follows you.
Oh, I love
because they got so big, they need it. They have their overhead gets crazy when you get that big. And then when they get swallowed by even bigger companies, then they have someone to answer to. Then it's like, it doesn't matter what your plans were. It matters now, the people that own you now, it matters what they want. And so that trickle down effect, stuff happens like what we've seen with Diablo now. Like, it's crazy to have that much hoopla of a game that is now like, I don't know, 3 patches later, and it's just reaction. Like, that's kind of wild.
Isn't there supposed to be like 2 expansions for it already too when the game just came out?
Yeah, that's what they were reporting. They were already supposedly working on the DLC and everything as the game came out.
Cause like to my knowledge, you don't even fight Diablo yet.
Bro, don't start. Don't get me started on the fact that I'm playing a game called Diablo and I didn't fucking fight Diablo, okay?
Exactly. I spent $100 on Diablo 4.
That shit had me vexed. I'm not gonna lie to you. That shit had me vexed.
Yeah, I mean,
well, that goes right back to the same thing that I mentioned before. You're spending X amount of money on the base game, and now they want you to spend X amount of money to quote finish the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they did that as well with there's the Dead Space, the quote Dead Space lookalike Calypso
Oh, Calypso Protocol?
Yeah, Calypso Protocol, to quote finish the fight, they added like this extra little DLC content or whatever to give
What?
your brain
Really?
satisfaction of ending the yep.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's ridiculous.
I did not know that.
I mean, back to Peon's point. Even when we were younger and during the 90s, during the 2000s, games were still costing $50, $60, $70. Like Mario 64 cost $60. Like that's
Mario?
go.
You mean
Yeah,
Mario?
Super Mario 64 cost 60
Mario,
bucks.
bro. Mario.
My
that's
boy,
right.
my bad, bro. That's my New York accent. Nah.
Nah. We have arguments in this household if it's Mario or Mario. So don't bring that to this conversation because I'm gonna fight for that one.
He's been Mario. He's been Super Mario all my life. Stop it.
Oh no.
But to go off that point of expansions, like you guys might complain about that, but do you complain that there's a Mario 2, 3, 4, Mario Party, Yoshi's Island? Like,
That's
is that
but that's different though.
Call of
That's
Duty-
different
Call-
than expansions.
I will live and die by these words. I
Those are
think
new
Call
games.
of Duty needs to be set on fire. It needs to be burned. It
They're
needs
not
to be
new.
completely
it's
sacrificed
the
to
same
gods.
characters and a different thing?
Yeah, just
So, same with Mortal
true.
Kombat and Tekken, like fighting games especially. You add 2 more characters and you put it in a new game. It's not. You didn't make anything new. You just added 2 characters and then put another $60 out for it, and you get Tekken 3. Or you get something else. You know.
Well, hold on,
that's exactly
Zach.
the same thing as
Wait.
expansions.
You cannot say that about fighting games because every single fighting game I've ever played has gotten progressively better with each new iteration. So
Yeah,
you can't
but-
really stick that to fighting games or the fighting genre. That's really, really different.
But I
And
feel the same about MMOs. I could play, if you played WoW back in the day, some people will say, I like this expansion, I like this expansion, I hated this one, but then I love this one, and I hated that one, and love that one. So the games are always being developed and changed to a point where even people like different expansions, as much as some people will say, hey, I really
Yeah, but
like
the
Soul
stories
Calibur
don't suck.
2, but didn't like 3 or something.
But I think WoW got it right. I think WoW was one of the first ones to get it right when they did it all, and they were probably one of the first to do it all correctly.
Right.
And to do it, one of the first to do it and do it all correctly. They had the microtransactions, they had expansions, they added a subscription, and that game is still being played. Now I don't play it anymore because my taste has changed, and I kind of I got my fill of WoW, but I still respect WoW for what they brought because they're one of the first ones to get it. That's different. So expansions behave. I think expansions are better than DLCs. I think expansions, especially for titles that actually have a storyline, work really well. Which is why Diablo has us still around because Diablo has a good storyline. WoW has a great storyline that they're able to expand on. With even the map getting bigger and like depending on what expansion you're buying, you can go to this island over here or this part of the map over there. They're actually adding that, and so that is different from DLC, and that is also different from a part 1, part 2, part 3 because each one, the part 1, part 2, and part 3 does have their own different storylines. So I think the part 1, 2, and 3 behave more like expansions, and these DLCs behave more like what we hate.
Well, some of that works fine, but to elaborate a little bit more on what Peons is saying here is, it's also a little bit more than that too. It's like I can see that type of consistency of like quote remakes, but at the same time, you have to look at the gaming industry itself as it's a business, it's an industry, and Ubisoft has already talked about this. Ubisoft, whatever. They've already talked about this several times, where they have a legit formula as to how they make their games. That's why you take a look at Far Cry, their Valhalla, their Assassin's Creed games. Almost any of their open world games all have the same formula. Go around an open world map, do small little objectives, get minor upgrades or minor things that quote change the way that you play it in the most minute fashion while still roping you along to invest as much time as possible to get those small hits of dopamine with each tiny quest that you completed. It's not like that type of repetition in those kind of games is a problem, because in a gaming there's no creativity, there's no originalism. You're literally just taking a set formula and a set way to be able to milk your player base, and slapping a different skin on it. And that's no different from some of the previous Call of Duty games. Call of Duty Black Ops, I think, used the same engine that Modern Warfare did, or some kind of. There was not the engine, but a lot of assets that were spent on the Modern Warfare game was spent making Black Ops and Black Ops 2. So at some point, you're almost paying for the same game that you already have.
But there was a point,
especially from Ubisoft.
So Avante, you were making a point about the things that we don't like, which I think is the crux of what I'm trying to bring out too. Like, so can you elaborate a little more on those specific things? Like what in particular we're talking? Because I like the point you were making about the DLC versus expansion, but I think what's happened is that, especially with this new generation like Bumble and Tortellini, you know, they're in the newer generation of gamers now in their 20s. You know what I mean? These are the young adult gamers. We're the old guys. And I mean, is there a line between DLC and expansion for you guys specifically? Bumble and Tortellini.
I guess it just really depends on the thing that I'm buying, you know, because it's like, let's say I grew up on like Fire Emblem games and a lot of like, let's say 2008, I want to say average games that would be like a nostalgia itch for me. But I think like what really ticks me off is like, let's say the new Fire Emblem game has a DLC and I already don't even want it. And like, there's some other games like, let's say, I'm not a Sims player.
Is it considered an expansion, or is it just a DLC? Like,
it's a DLC because it adds like a couple characters that weren't in the game before, and then like a couple other like nonsense. But
and
it's
they
like
break the game.
Yeah, no, it's like it's just I don't know. It's just something about it where it's like it just needs to really be worth it. Like the new Pokemon, I played through all of Scarlet, and then the DLC came out, and I'm like, I don't even like this. Like, they're in Spain. Why are they going to Japan again? Like, it
really?
just doesn't really.
Yeah, that is kind of.
It just, yeah, it rubs me like the weird way with some games. But there are some games where it's like, I'll just eat it up as soon as it comes out. Like, let's say I'm a huge MMO fan. I've played almost every major one. I have great characters on almost every major one, and Final Fantasy XIV is one that I genuinely enjoyed, and I bought every expansion.
Yes.
So, it's just so much worth it. Yeah, like it just really needs to be worth it for like the quality, the price, and the everything. And you know, like Sony brushes up upon it. I think like for their price increase, like games are $70 and such, they stated like this is because games are just higher demand now. Like, we have a bigger team. People want to see, like, mind-blowing graphics, like the new Final Fantasy game that just came out. Like, people want to see what they want to see. And games like Cyberpunk aren't cheap either. It's like 300 million production value. So it's like, you know, it's not going to be a $30 game if, like, you know, they got to make $300 million back somehow.
Oh, I see what you... Yeah, that's kind of crazy, actually, having it so sky high. Like, so, and then now to Avante's point, what were you talking about, Avante, when you were saying, you know, the difference between DLC and expansion, and DLC more so having those issues with what, you know, this whole idea of paying for extras that aren't really... can you elaborate on that just a little more?
Yeah, my first couple experiences of downloading and paying for a DLC were trash. I compared it to getting an expansion like Lord of Destruction for D2. I compared it to WoW, and then my first DLC was like a DC Universe game or something, and then like my second DLC I think might have been Borderlands or something, and I'm just like, yo, this is like the gacha version for like mobile, like the mobile gacha games. This is the PC version. You know, that's what a DLC feels like to me, because compared to expansion, DLC is like a much smaller like package of content that feels like a cash grab almost every time. And I never do it again. Every time I see if there's an option for a DLC in a game I have, I don't give a crap about it. I'm never gonna download it. I'm never gonna try to buy it, see what it is. You could trick me with expansion. Label expansion, you got me. I'm gonna give it a try. Because if they say, oh, D4 expansion has a vampire hunter or something like that for the original game, and it's not mobile, I'm in. I'll be like, I'll probably give a look at it, because I feel like the expansion is really them trying to add more substance to a story we're already familiar with, and now it's the ... It's the ... of to be continued is the expansion.
Right.
DLC is, hey, look at this shiny thing here. You can have
another horse.
Have a red horse. Yeah. Yeah, you have a red horse driving a red car, with a red bandana. Like, thanks. I'm part of a gang playing this game now. I don't understand why I need to do this.
And it's interesting because a lot of it also is subjective as well. If you like the game and if the game is really good, so there's what are our numbers? So what did we say before when we were talking about price, right? We talked about money, time, and sanity. Right?
Sanity.
So if it appeals to all those three factors, isn't that why we actually would invest in it? Like, we like putting our time into it. We like putting our money into it. You know what I mean? But let's look at this past year. Let's look at this year and the last year. There have been some serious snafus. And I mean, we talk about these AAA studios, and a few of you have made the point about, the overhead costs and stuff like that needs to be made. Has the quality reflected that? Honestly, I mean, someone.
Honestly, I feel like the quality is more so akin to how movies are. They're spending $300 million on movies,
Preach.
and they're trying to get all their money back, and then they flop. Like that's just the nature of shit. Like, what else can explain it? I mean, perfect example: the Marvel universe. We're just oversaturated with it at this point. Everybody's kind of, oozing Marvel from every orifice, and they're all over it. You can take that into regards with how their last couple movies have done, not to mention that the stories have kind of fallen flat. I mean, video games suffer from the same thing. If you have a terrible story direction, it doesn't matter how much money you're pouring into it. The fans and all the reviews are going to basically tank it regardless. It's the same idea.
But is that because it's too much, or is that because it's bad?
It could be both.
I think it's bad first, because if it's good first, we probably won't get the fatigue that it's being spoken about in social media right now. If it's good, because the first phase did have quite a lot all the way to the end. If we look back and think about it, like, there's quite a lot of movies. It might have been more spaced out now versus now. But because it was good and it was leading to a conclusion,
the Marvel movies you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
That we were good with it, but because they failed at being good after, the volume does not help. It just amplifies the terrible results, and it makes it very obvious to everyone that they're just cash grabbing at this point. I find it. You know what I find interesting though, like just in my professional experience too, and some of you guys might know this too. Like, if something works, sometimes it's hard for higher ups to be willing to let you experiment to see what's the next thing. They rather you stick to what's not broken and ride it out until it breaks. Yeah. So you're forced to be in a position where you ride it out the way they want you to ride it out, because it worked in the past and it's working right now. And even if you're having your gut is telling you, maybe we should go this way, maybe we should A/B test this way. The people above you making the calls, they don't like that, and they want you to stick with what they think works, not with what makes sense to work, because who knows? Maybe it's because it's a faster bottom line. They're maybe not as open to experiment with time and money in that direction, and they rather stick with what's worked in the past. They rather lean in on brand and nostalgia than like trying to find the next thing that is like very appealing to us. And so, and I think the bigger, and this back to my prior point, the bigger they get, the harder it is for them to really find what we like. They're giving us what they think we like.
That's an interesting.
I mean, not to mention we're already at the point where everything's starting to get remade again. So
yeah, that's another thing that I'm like.
There's always
wanted to bring that up. The remakes
and no
stuff.
offense, as many times as I'm willing to buy Skyrim, I mean they remake it another time with updated graphics. I'm probably going to spend my money. like I don't give a fuck. Like you're talking about
take my money meme.
For sure. I've bought Skyrim now 7 times, 8 times. Like I'm not even lying here. I've probably bought Skyrim like 6 or 7. Yeah, exactly. Like I own it on every console I've ever had. I own it on PC. Like
Skyrim mod, Death, you'll never have to buy another one again.
Yeah, no, I know that, but there's nothing like taking Skyrim with me on my Switch on the go. Granted, it runs like shit. There's nothing comparable to taking Skyrim on the go, you know. So I mean, I don't know. For me, it's much different. For me, it's more so all these companies are shelling out money to make a game that has been talked about for 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Look at Skull and Bones. It's been in development since 2013. That's when Black Flag came out.
Right.
You're talking about. You've been talking to me. 2013. You know, you're talking to me about a game that you've been talking about now for almost a decade and change.
Yeah, over 10 years, 11 years.
and then you finally release it and it's trash. Like
and it's
what?
junk.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah,
that's one thing I don't get. You know what I mean?
The worst part is that all the people that were excited about the game were saying, "Look, if you're telling me this is what you're making, make it exactly like this, and you can have my money." And 10 years later, it's not this, and people are like, "What did you guys do?"
Right. That was a big thing because they hyped it up. There was another game that came out recently. I talked about this with a few people. City Skylines 2, right? They had an amazing hype about this game that sold me, that I was so hyped for this game. And the game was released, and it's garbage because it doesn't work. Like all the systems that they talked about don't work. You can start a city, and your city will work regardless of how bad you do anything. It's weird. And the controls and the logistics chains and all this other stuff are basically non-existent, and the bugs, what kills me are the bugs. And Bumble mentioned this earlier with Bumble and Tortellini mentioned this with the Pokemon series. The bugs for those games were atrocious. And look at Starfield. Starfield was supposed to be this amazing game. This is another game. And Starfield, I mean, that game, I had it installed on an SSD and it still ran like crap. You know what I'm saying? And then you have the CEO making Twitter posts talking about, "Oh, you need to upgrade your computer to play this game." It's like upgraded to what? Some people got the best PCs out there, and
they were even having issues.
It's crashing their hard drives because your game is so poorly optimized. What are you talking about? You know, they're attacking. One thing I don't like is when people attack the fans. I mean, that's like you make a steak at a restaurant and the person doesn't like your steak. So the chef comes out and spits at them and says, "You don't like food," which sometimes does happen if you go to like a particular restaurant. You know what I mean? But if you go to McDonald's, if you go to McDonald's, well, no, I mean, come on, you know,
I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm talking about.
Of Sony, of Sonic the Hedgehog, the fans hated that character model so much
and
that they had to redo it.
Yeah.
And I think games are going to start getting to that point also, where they're going to start noticing that they're spending these $300 to $500, $500 million making these games that take 3 to 6 years to develop. And they're going to start noticing that if they don't start listening to their fan content, these companies are going to go bankrupt. They're not going to be able to sustain things. like this. And I think right now, what they do is that with all these transactions, they're building these teams because, they have to maintain their game, right? Blizzard cannot just say, hey, we're going to make a game, and then once we're done with it, that's it. It's all about patching, giving new things. They have to keep that whole team in place and then make the next game and the next expansion with another team, or develop a brand new game to throw out to people. So with all these updated things, like, yes, the price might go up a little bit, or we might get pissed off about microtransactions and these DLCs, but the more people that don't purchase into some of that stuff, especially those DLCs or whatever, like, then people will stop making them. They'll be like, it's not working. We're better off with just microtransactions and everything else, or the community doesn't like that. But if the community, even if they hate it, if they keep purchasing it, then there's no point for the company to back off, and they're going to keep doing it.
And so where is that point then? Because, and a few people have already touched on it, because there's games, because you touched on it, Tortellini, with the Final Fantasy series. Avante touched on it with World of Warcraft. These games are successful, and they'll have these microtransactions which they're making bank off of. And to be honest, I understand that, but they have to get there first. No, I mean, if the game is not fun, nobody's going to buy it, let alone a DLC plus a cosmetic, right? Are we in agreement here? Or...
I mean, like, I think the biggest thing is what you notice is, like, when companies start pushing out their games and other companies are in the middle of their project. Okay, like let's say, let's take League, for example, Riot.
Yeah,
they're working on their secret MMO. No one knows if it's going to be canceled, if it's still going. They're really pretty much like up in the air right now, like what's going on with the game. But they probably have a good place of it. Now, the biggest thing for companies like that is the hype is so big, right? It's going to be as big as hype as this last game that you guys are just talking about, how it just flopped so bad. But the biggest thing is what you guys just said. The fan base has told them exactly what they want to see in this game. Yeah. And what did they do?
Play it.
Correct. The fan base is playing it. So if you can't give and deliver off of something like that and put that into your game scope, then if you spent 10 years on developing a game and only took 30% of their input and said, nah, people are going to like it like this because we see it working in this game, and this game, and this game, that's why it takes 10 years. You keep going off track because, WoW just did this with their expansion, so I think we should do this system. You got to focus on what you and your model and your team is going to build off of in your community. So if the League community says this MMO better have this set of things in it, and you don't add pretty much 80% of that, the game is going to flop. It's already done. You've already lost your fan base.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So there's another set of game, right? So there's two other games I wanted to bring up. First is the gacha scene. Gacha games, if they're good, make a lot of money, which is kind of crazy. Does anyone here play gacha games? I do. I used to. I can say with sad face, I got sucked into that Cookie Run Kingdom game, and
I used to play Final Fantasy Brave Exvius and Puzzles and Dragons, and
Puzzles and Dragons, that was mine too.
P&D was very, very fun. All the different collabs they had and shit, dude, like, it was just great. Same thing with Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. It was a lot of good collabs going on. They had Nier, they had like tons of different collabs that just made it worth it, and sinking your money into it to just pull and try to get the character that just dropped. You know what I mean?
Did you sink in a lot of money into that game?
Did
it get you?
Maybe 1,000 between the two over the course of 6 or 7 years.
Oh, the whale.
You wailed it. Over 6 or 7 years, that's not considered a whale.
Okay. That's actually...
on average, a whale will spend that in a month. Like, I was nowhere near whale status. Yeah, man. I
spent that much on Magic 1 month. I can't.
Like you like reasonably speaking, like when you're buying, $5-10 here, $5 there, like it does add up. That's why I'm ballparking it to probably about $1,000 over the course of maybe 6 or 7 years.
Over 6 and 7 years, yeah, that's not like crazy, right? I'm about to say, I think you're
Especially
right.
when
That's
you
usually
when you're
in
dropping it $5
in a month.
here, 3 weeks later $5 there, a month
Right,
later,
right,
$10, $20 there, like.
And those games work because one, they're fun for the what they give you,
Gives you the
and
dopamine hit.
it does. And you can, I guess, the thing is though, sometimes it gets a little too crazy because you got a game like what you were saying, those games that you played, the cookie run game I played, but then you got a game like Diablo Immortal
No, thank
that
you.
right. It's such a different, just the way it works. It's like you can't do anything. These are the games you can do stuff in. You can do stuff in, and yet it's a little more grindy. So how come all games wouldn't, and that's considered a free to play game, basically, those gotcha games, because you
Yep.
can play those
Yeah.
games and not sink in a single cent. League of Legends
Yeah,
is
League of
a
Legends.
free to play game. You don't have to put a single cent into that game to be able to enjoy the full experience of its actual gameplay. So then why don't more games take that route? Why do you think more games won't take that route? Because it's not like they're not profitable. League of Legends makes so much money on just skin sales. Think about that. Just skin sales. That's all they're making money on. They make so much money. World of Warcraft, if they got rid of their subscription model, I don't think they would have any problem selling DLC and cosmetics. So why?
Well,
Go
They
ahead.
already do.
I feel like the gacha model is way different from the model of a traditional game. The gacha model is supposed to, try to get your money. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Compared to like microtransactions for Call of Duty or Diablo or WoW, where you're buying a cosmetic or you're buying gold or you're buying an experience or weapon boost for an hour. Like that's completely different. With gotchas, you're literally trying to get that one thing that has a random chance of being dropped. Compared to a microtransaction or a skin cosmetic where, I'm going to just go to the store and specifically purchase this item.
Yeah, I would say it's gambling for under 18.
That's the perfect way to describe it. Gambling for underage people.
Yeah, gambling for under 21 because you're literally paying for a chance.
Exactly.
A 1% or 0.001% chance of getting that super special, ultra rare, super shiny card, power level character or whatever. But that's all you're doing. You're just gambling for fun. So maybe that's why I enjoyed it for so long and spent like, probably $3 or $4 grand into it over 7 years. But I mean, it's one of those things where I like to gamble and you're gambling for power.
Exactly.
And sometimes you hit it and sometimes you don't. But microtransactions also do really good about making sure that even if you don't hit, you're still strong enough to challenge those type of teams and do some stuff. Maybe not maintain a strong record, but for a very short time, you could hit some certain power spikes and stuff if you keep at the game. So I think that's why the gacha games kind of work, because they don't do a Diablo Immortal where it's like you need to pay $2,000 a month, a mortgage a month to keep up in power. And in these games, you can actually allow that.
Yeah, that was a decision. There is no type of information anywhere. I don't know what statistic that they had that showed that was going to work on some level. Because I think
it was the same statistic that led them to say, "You have phones, don't you?" when they announced Diablo Immortal.
Bro, oh my God.
It's the same sentiment and the same statistics that gave them that one quote that everybody basically shitted on them for almost an entire summer.
Yes, and that game did not make money. It did not make money despite how crazy it was. How some other games make money with their microtransactions. I think there was an actual document that showed the Diablo Immortal numbers, and it did not make, it was, for all intents purposes. I mean, it was it made back what the production costs were, but the production costs I don't think were ginormous like these other games. Like it wasn't 300 million. Tortellini was saying, what was it, Fire Emblem? What did you say, 380 million or something like that?
Cyberpunk, I think.
Yeah, Cyberpunk.
That's so crazy for a game to have such an expensive budget. Now that's a gamble though too, because you want to make that back, and if you make it back, it's a success. It's great, but
Maybe they wanted to try a new model out to see if it would actually work, and it's a
Well-
gamble they were willing to take.
the game itself was great. It just that it didn't work when when it was first released. Cyberpunk, that was a whole other issue. That's
According to ARS Technia,
Give us the numbers.
Cyberpunk is the most expensive game actually released thus far, coming in
Wow.
at over
Wow.
$400 million.
total.
And that's from
Woo.
base game to all the DLCs and fixes. Supposedly, they spent $120 million alone
Mm.
on just patching and fixing the broken game.
I think that's the answer to your question, Tone. Hey, why
That's crazy.
why are there
That is
not more free to play games? And I think the industry standard of the timeline of getting together a bunch of people, starting a company, and putting out a game, and then getting a return on the game. I think the industry standard pushes out probably everyone that would rather start as a free to play because they can't compete. They don't have the resources to start off as free to play. League can do it because it started such a long time ago that it's just they're the LeBron James of longevity in the gaming world, because see, they're not great because they've been around for a while. They just they're able to stay free to play for so long because of how long they've been in it.
Mm.
Now, we all saw when they started switching to the cosmetics that was something that was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And that was another stream of income too. But
Didn't
they end
have
up being
pre-orders
owned by
first?
like, what was
For
that?
League?
Yeah, didn't League have pre-orders?
There was like incentives if you bought like the CD or whatever at the time, that
If you bought the CD, you got
specific
20
skins.
chance.
Wait, there's this
20
there's
chance
this
in the
chance to get-
Tristana,
Hold up.
when it started,
the Riot
when it first
Tristana.
started. Yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah.
I
like,
actually
there was-
I bought the disc so I can unlock up the 20 champs. It cost as much as the unlocked did in game in the in-game store. It was the same price.
That's how long
crazy.
League has been around,
Wow.
and that's
Yeah.
why the free to play works for them. But
Mm.
unless you're a team of 3 people trying to make a game and you have all the time in the world, and there's no pressure on your back of timelines and return on your money, you're not going to do it.
It's not quite like that though with League. League started actually, from what I understand, could be wrong, could not be. From what my understanding is that Riot Games ended up getting started to lose like a lot of money off the game because they weren't pumping out content. Well, and what ends up happening is that Tencent, which is a Chinese,
They purchased them.
they purchased Riot, and they have 100% owner stock in Riot. They also have their fingers in a multitude of other games.
Yeah,
So
they
when you start looking at games, and another game to compare this to is Conan Exiles that I've played a bunch of that Tencent also has a great stock in. Well, Conan Exiles was in the same spot. They didn't have a lot of money, and so once Tencent bought them, they pumped money into the company, and then they started selling a whole battle pass system, where they now they milk your money. And Tencent is really good about keeping games afloat, but they have a lot of shady business practices, which are usually around microtransactions. And so, going back to Riot Games, that's exactly what happened to Riot. That is why almost all the time, 24/7, 7 days a week, 400 days of the year, they always have some form of a battle pass system that's made to milk your money, made for you to do this. They had like the lunar event, and then they had like another event, and they had the winter event, like every season. Like it doesn't matter. It's made to milk your money. It's made for you to buy the battle pass. It's made for you to invest time into the game, and it boosts their numbers. That's all it's about. And that's the reason why a lot of these games do what they do, is for that specific reason. And Riot Games is no different from that now. They went to the shitty business practices of the
I
battle
surmise. This is what I surmise. The only reason why they had any kind of appeal to be bought out is the player base and how many people they had
so
playing the game at the time. And if we know anything about like companies like Tencent, they love when it's volumes of people's information. I mean, people's playing their stuff and being able to have access to that information. I mean, player base. It's like something that is like really appealing to them. And I made a tweet about this. Like when Riot doesn't fix things like the way they match up players and stuff stays broken for such a long time, and some of those things promotes like extra game time. I said in a tweet, hey, listen, when it's free when a platform is free, the users are the product, not what they're using.
Well, that's the thing. Conan Exiles isn't free. You still have to pay for the game.
Who cares about Conan Exile?
Well, that's to be the same thing. Who cares about League? There's plenty of people that can say the same thing about League.
There's so many. That game is. Are you comparing Conan to League of Legends?
No, I'm comparing. No. I'm not comparing the game themselves.
Because I thought we were talking about player-based comparison here.
No. He was comparing the
No. I'm not.
company.
I didn't make a comparison by player base. You made the comparison by player base.
No.
You said the player base for Riot Games is for Riot is so high that the people become the product. Well, if the player base then in Conan Exiles isn't as massive, are the players still the product, even though it's the same the same business practice, even though the player base isn't so high?
No, you change your model. If you can't make profit, then you have to pay for the game. You have to make something to keep up with something.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The game was already able to be bought beforehand, even before the thing.
If the model never increased.
They didn't have a free-to-play model, though. They had a paid-to-play model, no? Conan Exiles.
No, it's you have to pay for the game. I thought you meant like a subscription.
Yeah. That's what right. I think so from what I'm getting, Avante's point about, because the player base is so high in League of Legends, we're
that
basically
it can remain free to play,
right? Because they can milk us,
well,
so to speak, right?
That I don't find that to be true either, because the original release of League of Legends itself, you had to pay for a copy.
Right before, but now
my point was that.
Go ahead.
The reason why they're even bought out by a Chinese company anyway is because they put the time in to have a big of a player base as they did. Otherwise, there is no appeal for a company to buy Riot Games if the player base wasn't as big, because it was free to play. That was my point. So because of that, the appeal for Tencent to buy them was because of the massive amount of people playing the game and all the information they have access to because of that.
So how does Conan Exiles work now? Does it just work on a battle pass, or do you have to buy the game and then the battle passes are, because I know League, the battle pass isn't mandatory to actually play the game. Is Conan Exiles the same, or is it like Destiny where you can't play like the story unless you can buy the
without
battle pass?
I mean, they're both the same. You don't have to get it. You don't have to.
So how does
you don't have to get them. It's just the fact that they're there.
I view it as like Counter-Strike 2, like another game that you just make the initial purchase to, and to keep it up and running, more microtransactions. I mean, League of Legends, free microtransactions, but you have to sustain a way of business. So the way I look at it as like, it's not a bad practice. It's a good practice, because you don't have to purchase anything. You literally don't.
You don't have to purchase it, but they make it so the incentive is there for you to do it constantly. They shove it into your face 24/7. The first thing you see to log in is about the battle pass. It's about the system. It's not about the game.
As soon as you log in, they're like, the new battle pass is here.
Yeah, I mean, League of Legends used to not be like that. Way back in the day, when you logged into League, some of the first things that you could fucking see was, hey, this is what has changed in this month of League of Legends, the lore. They used to have fucking lore updates constantly. And they don't do that stuff anymore. And half that stuff they give on the website. They don't try to focus on what the game, like part of the lore and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
I get the point you're coming from, Gary. And I used to kind of think that, and I just want to start wrapping things up here. I'm going to start just, I'm going to have one, throw out one final question that everyone can just dig deep into. But I used to think the same thing, honestly, and it used to frustrate me as well. But then I realized the free to play part, and this is more so for like a gacha game, more so, or a game even like League of Legends. I can play those games for free by just clicking the little X to remove that screen and let other people play. If that's going to make the money, because I've had this discussion before, and I used to kind of be like, oh, why are they doing this? They want my money. I have to do this. And it's made that way. It's a science, it's made that way to get you to want to buy it, because they're, in the end,
right,
unfortunately, the truth is that yes, there are companies that have gotten very large, and it's sad because there's been so many layoffs. Literally in the last 3 months, we've heard of every major gaming company doing hundreds, sometimes thousands of people being laid off. But having also said that, how else are these games going to go on if as free to play? I'm not talking about a game like Diablo or Destiny where you had to pay already so much. Like that kind of irks me still, because you're still
that though.
You still what? So go ahead, finish up your point then.
Yeah, yes. So that's not what I'm saying. What like for what I'm trying to tell you that no one seems to realize is that Tencent owns literally all the almost a huge stock in all these companies that all of us are bitching about. Riot Games, Frontier Dev UK, Ubisoft, Glue Mobile, Snap Inc., Clay Entertainment, Fat Shark, Activision Blizzard, Epic Games, Paradox Interactive, Funcom, Supercell, Tencent Games, Aurora Studios. Like Tencent owns all these companies. They have a huge stock and a huge shareholder, which influences the practice of why of why they are the way they are, and that is why every single one of these games are the way they are with all these battle pass systems. They're all owned by this one fucking company.
Oh yeah, that's their model. That's
exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to disagree with that.
So it's not a matter of all these different games and these different avenues and these different aspects of what makes the game the game. It's the fact that these games are modeled by a specific design with a motto in mind for their player base, their product to be, to be consumed by us, because it's all a shady business. It's just designed to fuck you. That's all it is.
Interesting. All right.
By Tencent.
Let me just ask this last question, and everyone is welcome to throw their input. So after everything we've discussed, everything we've talked about, what is it for you specifically, each and every one of you, that makes you, because of a few people have already talked about the games that they like, the games that they'll pour money into. What is it that will make you pour money into those games and keep doing it? What is the magic formula for you specifically?
If my boys do it.
So peer pressure. Got it. Okay.
Absolutely peer pressure. I've given it to peer pressure.
For some things, he's not wrong.
I put peer pressure on you guys to go in.
I don't know what you mean, man. I don't know what you mean.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Peer pressure will do it sometimes. That's definitely one way to get me to play something. Let me find out I'm missing out because all you fuckers are playing the same shit.
What about
I mean, that's definitely one way to do it.
Stockholm syndrome. Oh,
that's
God.
if you're kidnapped, right?
Wait. Okay, let me explain. I just wanted to say that to get it out there. So something like Pokemon, right? The last 3 generations of Pokemon
we're gonna skip Stockholm syndrome.
Shit.
Okay.
But because I grew up with Pokemon my whole life, I knew you were gonna say something. But since I grew up with Pokemon my whole life, of course, when the next one's announced, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll still buy it. It's probably gonna be garbage, but I'll still play it.
Oh my God.
I get that.
Is that Stockholm syndrome?
Stockholm syndrome is
that technically every League of Legends player? I mean,
yes. That and addiction.
Touche.
Oh Lord. Oh my goodness. I think I triggered myself.
For me, I'd say it's more so it's something I've played before and I've actually enjoyed it for me to keep spending my money on it. Hence why I've bought Skyrim 7 times. Like,
Lol.
I don't blame you.
Like
you tell me
I Final Fantasy 4.
like, you know, tell me I don't like the game and you know, I won't spend my money. But if I like it, I'm definitely gonna spend my money. That's the truth. Like Diablo had my money before it came out, and then I knew I was gonna buy it before they even said, yeah, you can reserve it. I was like, yo, just tell me when I can reserve it. You're gonna get my money. Like, it's Diablo. Like, it's a no-brainer sometimes. And then it comes out, and I'm just absolutely disappointed. Like, well, there you go.
That reminds me.
Oh,
I had I ended up buying it, not Diablo 3, but I think it was Diablo 2, where you had like some pre-order of like Tyrion's charger or something that would be translated into WoW.
And you
yeah,
get
well,
I did
yeah,
the
you had
same.
to pay for so many months, right? Psych, right?
You had to do it for 6 months. Yes.
Yes. Well, what
Yes.
ended up happening, I don't know, but
I
there was
have
a
the
glitch in
mount.
their system.
Oh.
I only paid for 3 months. And
oh no way.
Yeah, I only paid for 3 months, and I ended up talking to some customer service rep, and because there was an issue, and
What was the issue? You didn't want to pay another 3 months?
No, it was my payment system or whatever, and the
Whoops, declined.
Yeah, my card that got declined, but I was still playing. I was still playing for like 6 months or whatever. But for 3 of those months, I got for free. But what was funny about it is that it didn't say that I owned Diablo 2, and I was asking what the hell happened. But what was super funny is I still have the charger, and I still have it to this day. I still have it on my account.
That's awesome. That's
super
customer service noted. I got it. Let me.
Yeah, I even asked the guy. I was like, I even asked him. I said, "So does that mean you will
That's kind
remove
of funny,
this from my account?" And he's no. And in his words, he said, "No, I'm leaving Blizzard in 2 months, so you can just keep it. I don't care."
I'm like Riot support.
What a good story.
Yeah. He said he was going to leave Blizzard. So funny.
Oh my goodness.
My dude got another job and he hooked up Gary with the mount.
That's dope.
Said he wasn't going to take it away. It was great.
Oh,
no, but Gary, I
story.
feel you on my payment method not being fucking accepted by some people because PlayStation don't like my debit card. I haven't been able to pay my PlayStation account for like the last like 5 or 6 years with my debit card at all.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
they
that
don't
might be
like
good, 'cause how many times they get broken into, that might be a good thing.
Yeah,
For some reason,
Like-
my PayPal account hates
Yeah.
using my current card. No idea
Wow.
why.
But that's the wild shit. I have my bank account, my bank card set up to my
That's
PayPal
crazy.
and paying it through my PayPal, and everything works just fine. Apple's the same way. They don't like my debit card either.
They don't want your money. They don't want it.
They don't want my money to pay them every month for my
They don't
Apple
want it.
subscription.
They
Just
don't realize-
open a ticket, and that's the first thing you lead with is you just say, "Why don't you want my money?" What did I do?
You don't want my money, but I want to give it to you.
I know.
Yeah.
That's so weird. That's totally the opposite of how this started. That's actually amazing. Oh man, Bombo Tortellini, any insights? What is it for you guys before we wrap up?
Having a good story that I could play whenever.
Yeah, for me, really, it's depends on how long I play the game for, you know? Because let's say, for example, one of my games I've been playing for like over 10 years probably is MapleStory. I hate
Oh,
Nexon
wow.
because they're
Oh my God, Nexon! Yep.
yeah, and I still be playing it, man.
There's a name I
used
haven't
to
heard
play-
in forever.
Hey,
Oh.
shout out. If you've watched Konosuba, they have an event right now. Just saying.
Oh,
It's
man.
whack.
So I actually have a question for you. Are you familiar with Mabinogi?
Of course.
Oh my goodness.
I used to play that religiously.
Yeah, and you know, like, this is where I'm gonna like segue just for a second, is like, see, I've played like a lot of Nexon games, like when they were just announced, when they've come out, when they were in their peak and stuff, but I
Shattered
hate
Galaxy?
Nexon because what was that?
Shattered Galaxy? What?
Mm.
I never played
That's
that
an old.
one.
That's an old
Yes.
Nexon game. A very old Nexon game.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, but the thing with Nexon is like they will gatekeep a lot of their really good items or the things that genuinely are like game-breaking changes, and it'll be like for $30, but it's a chance to get it. Like, it's insane what they do. It's insane what they do. But I'm gonna still keep pouring money into MapleStory, you know? Like, I think I've spent, oh god, like over $500 maybe, and like the whole duration of me playing it.
Nice.
I'm gonna still do it every time.
Because you like it.
MapleStory was only on PC. Like, what? Now it's on mobile. Like, shit.
Yeah, that is crazy. But accounts don't transfer.
Yeah. I figured that out when I downloaded it on my phone and it didn't transfer, and I was like, nah, I don't want this.
That sucks. You got to do a whole new account, do everything all over. Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah,
that is the worst. Who haven't we heard from on his
Peons?
Where you at?
I mean,
Give us your insight.
I'll pay for anything that's exciting and competitive. And so I go back and forth between I've played Final Fantasy MMO sometimes, and I'll go back to it probably eventually again. I've gone back to WoW after going off and on. For League, only for one season did I really not play at all. Like, if the game is entertaining and it's fun to me, I'm going to continue to do stuff in it. And if I'm investing in a game long term like that, I don't mind paying into it because that account is staying with me. And I think that's the difference when I look back at like when I was on my Game Boy and playing Ocarina of Time or something like that, is that you played the game for that content, and once you were done with it, yes, you still had fun repetitive playing it and trying other stuff out, but you were looking for the next Zelda, you're looking for the next one to come out or play another game.
Yeah.
And I think for me overall, it's that games are now being more lasting and adding onto it and keep adding that content and playing it. And as long as the company does it right, I don't mind spending because it'd be no different from me just purchasing a different Zelda or Mario game and playing it and having the same fun.
Wow, that's awesome. Did I miss anybody? No, I think everyone. Right, we got Stockholm Syndrome. We got.
It's either that or old school games. What can I say?
And old school games, you could kind of say were kind of like masochistic fest because those games were just brutally hard, like the old Nintendo games. But that's
that and in terms of price too.
That's something that I would pay for. Is they did remakes
beating
of
Super Ghouls and Ghosts was insane.
Yes,
the old Zeldas. I'd buy those.
They're on the Switch.
It's not the same though. The virtual console's not the same as sitting in front of my. It's there. You're not wrong. It's there, but it's not the same. It doesn't hold the same nostalgia for me that it does hooking up my NES somewhere and just popping my Zelda in. It's not the same.
True. Well, this
sitting there playing it on my rectangle, NES controller compared to my 16 button Switch is so different. Like, nah, bro, it's so different. Then you got the rewind and fast forward and all the saving and shit. Like, it's not the same.
The cheating.
The cheating word,
man.
Well, this was a genuine pleasure. This was very insightful. I came in here. I like everyone's contribution to this discussion. This was a good discussion. This was a very good discussion. I just want to say, I'm just going to wrap things up, for now. I'm going to say thank you to all the panelists who joined. You guys are really awesome. This was a really good discussion. I like just how everything went. A lot of unexpected turns. I don't know how Stockholm Syndrome played into it, but it did. And, but I did, we did bring up Sanity, which was, and it was, and it's funny that Bumble brought that up. I thought that was great. But guys, thank you again. Thank you everyone for coming on the show. And I just want to say, everyone listening, remember you are awesome. Jesus loves you, and ganadora.